This episode is brought to you by SkySilk. If you're looking for an affordable and reliable cloud provider for your website, SkySilk is the answer for you. The intuitive dashboard interface allows you to quickly deploy one of the many built-in templates in just a few clicks, or directly upload your custom ISO. It doesn't matter if you're a senior developer with hundreds of websites or a student looking to experiment with your first cloud server, SkySilk can accommodate all your needs with powerful machines starting at just $5 per month. SkySilk also comes with many other perks, like a convenient reward system where you can redeem Sky Points to pay for your VPS, an ever-growing Discord community, and lightning-fast customer support. Click the link in the description below and use the promo code ALECADSkySilk to get 25% off of your personal cloud VPS. Thank you so much, Nick, for your availability, for being here. You're an awesome person. I've been following you on YouTube for a long time, but for all the people out there, all these crazy people that they don't know you, can you introduce yourself in a minute or less and tell us who you are?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Nick. My complete name is Nicholas. I live in France, in Brest, which is at the far western end of France, in a small region called Brittany. And I have a day job, which is as a product owner for a small startup in the airplanes sector. And well, I do Linux videos on my free time. So about 6 videos a month on the Linux Experiment channel. And I also have a new recent gaming channel with games played on Linux only, which is called the Linux Gaming Experiment.
Awesome. And both links for your YouTube channel and your gaming channel will be in the description of this video. So if you guys want to check it out, you can click on there. But speaking about your Linux channel, your main channel, the one that you started, is the one that helped me to discover you. And I really like all the videos you do, all the news you talk about, the recap of the month of the open source updates that happen month by month, and all of your reviews. I find them very insightful, and also all your comments are very, very smart. You're not like the typical Linux reviewers that is like, sometimes is angry and mad at things for no reasons. But can you give us a little bit of behind the curtains? Like, when did you decide to start your YouTube channel and why you decided to focus 100% on Linux?
Well, it was mainly out of boredom, because when it was about 2.5 years ago. I lived in Paris back then. I moved back to Brest, which is the city where I had all my late studies, and I just wanted to come back there. And when I came back, I had to sell a bunch of stuff to be able to pay for the move and to pay for the new flat. And so I didn't have anything in my flat apart from a couch and a TV. And my friends that I had in Brest were not all available at the time, so I was pretty bored, and I decided to try and learn something. I didn't want to stay a couch potato, sit down on my couch and watching Netflix. I just wanted to build something, create something, and so I decided to start learning how to make videos. And since I didn't have any camera available or anything, I decided to make like tutorials and screencasts. And the computer I bought, since I didn't have much money, had no OS on it, and so I decided to install Linux, which I had used way back in 2006 until maybe 2013. And well, I decided to make screencasts about Linux because I found that there are lots of channels about Linux and open source software, but they're mainly meant to speak to people that are already familiar with Linux and open source software, and not really geared towards beginners, I think. So at least at the time, that's what I felt like. And so I decided to make something really geared towards, well, beginners. And since I was rediscovering Linux after about 4 or 5 years without having used it, I thought it was a good idea.
Nice. Yeah, that's very interesting, your point in terms that, like, I'm guilty of that as too. I have a small playlist where I talk about Linux, but it's targeted towards like developers, how to set up your terminal to compile the code faster. Instead, like, your videos are more targeted to like mainstream users, like regular user that they actually want a working computer to be able to play games or do just day-to-day job, and not being actually like software engineers or do something very complicated and building your own Linux kernel from scratch. All these crazy things.
Yeah, that was the goal. Well, I was a beginner myself, and I'm no computer techie or anything. I'm not a developer. I'm not a software engineer, software architect, or anything like that. I work with people who do these jobs, but I don't myself. So I have a bit of a technical background, but not
Hmm.
much. And I want my computers to work. I don't want to mess around with too many things. I don't want to have to install, compile stuff. I want it to basically work and be easy to use. And so I just wanted to show that Linux can be that. If you're a little bit lucky on the hardware, basically,
Yeah.
it can just work fine. So I wanted to give that image because, well, Linux still has that really, it's for techies, it's for developers, you have to use the command line. It's starting to shed that, but it's still on that.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to show that it's not all about the compiling stuff and doing developer work. You can game on Linux now, you can install anything, you can do productivity work. I made a special video series about that in which I just used Linux at work for 3 or 4 months, and I haven't went back to the Mac that they gave me at my job.
Oh,
I still use Linux at work. It's been like 5 months now, maybe.
nice. You landed directly on elementary OS, or you jumped around? You did the usual distro hopping that everyone does.
Yeah, I landed back on elementary. When I started using Linux, it was in 2006, and it was just because I wanted to have an OS that looked like a Mac.
Hmm.
But at the time, there was no elementary OS, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so I decided to look around, and I customized my Windows. My Windows didn't look like a Mac at all, even with Windows XP theme packs and whatever. It completely broke my system. And I found that with Linux, you could completely tweak your system. And at the time, I had no idea that Linux could not install exe files or whatever.
Mm.
So I just decided to grab it, install it. I encountered the usual Wi-Fi driver hurdles, etc. And so I went with Ubuntu. In that quest, I found Elementary OS when it released way back, way later. And well, I found it really interesting, but at the time I didn't want to use Elementary. I didn't want to use Linux. I wanted to use a Windows PC to game.
Hmm.
So when I decided to come back to Linux to create the channel, I decided to give Elementary a try, and I switched away from it for about 6 or 7 months. I switched to Manjaro, but I went back to Elementary. I just think it's nicer, it's simpler to use, it's more polished, it's super stable, never crashes on me,
Hmm.
and these specific elementary apps are really great. And well, I don't want to move away from that for now.
Nice. What was the driving force to move to Manjaro? What appealed to you in terms of
Uh,
trying that?
well, when I started the channel, I used a laptop which had a NVIDIA GTX 1050, I think, a Core i5, stuff like that. It was not powerful enough to really dig into video editing. It just stuttered a lot. It was not that powerful, and 8 gigs of RAM for video editing is a bit on the low side.
Hmm.
So at the time, I bought a desktop PC, which is way beefier with a Ryzen 5, an RTX 2060, and 16 gigabytes of RAM. And I just wanted to see if I could squeeze more performance out of that hardware with a more recent based distro, because Elementary is still based on 18.04.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was not the most recent drivers. They hadn't released the hardware enablement stack yet. So it was a bit old school in terms of driver support. And I wanted to see something newer could yield more performance. Manjaro did perform a little bit better, but in the end, it was just not stable enough for my needs. I probably installed too many Arch user repository
Yeah.
packages, honestly, and probably drove it into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's one of the main answers that I give whenever people ask me why I stick with elementary OS. It's that type of desktop environment, that type of distribution that kind of like forces you to not fiddle with packages, to
Yeah.
not install random things. So even if it might be very frustrating for Linux users that we like to tinker and just edit stuff and change things all the time, forces you to not do that. So you actually have a stable system that the developers that they release, they can control, and you can actually focus on work and not spending entire days on changing the dock icons to the colors that you
Yeah.
prefer. Or yeah.
Absolutely. It's too easy to go down the rabbit hole and start tinkering with your icons, with your theme, with your desktop layout, with the
Yeah.
applications you want to use. And then you've messed it too much. There's some application icons that don't look that great. And then there's this program that doesn't fit anymore. And so you spend your whole time fiddling and changing things. And in the end, you don't get any work done. And my computers are my work tools. I do game on them. I do some fun personal stuff on them. I do write on them. But I just want an interface to be able to launch programs and to look good. And that's what Elementary OS gives me.
Yeah, exactly. Throughout these months, it's how long has been since you started your YouTube channel?
A little bit over 2 years. I think I started in February 2018.
Oh,
So it's got to be like 2.5 years, something like that.
nice. In this time, did you find yourself learning the technical aspect? Like you said, you started because you were a newbie as well, so you wanted to have like simple videos targeted to people that don't have a complete technical backgrounds. Like, did you notice that with the time also you helped yourself through those videos in learning how to properly use the terminal, the command line, and how to understand which package you can install or not, and other more technical stuff?
Yeah, well, when I started back using Linux, I only knew a few apt-get commands to the terminals, the basic stuff to refresh the repositories, to install packages. I didn't know anything more than that. I did know a little bit of bash scripting, but not even conditional things, not if or whatever. I just knew how to create a bash script and list the various commands that you wanted to do and do an echo to print something in the terminal. But that's about it. What I didn't really learn that much in terms of really technical stuff. I do know a lot more commands now because I had to learn them to make some of my videos, and I had to tinker a little bit to convert videos with FFmpeg and stuff like that. But I don't think I really turned into a huge techie. I learned a little bit more about distributions that I didn't use, like Arch and Manjaro, and I learned a little bit about RPM packages, which I just don't like at all. But but at least I learned that, and well, that's about it. I don't really know much more now than when I started because I didn't really need to dig deep into it. When things don't work, I basically just try and reboot the computer, and most of the time it
Ah.
just works. But no, I'm not really a big techie. I don't know much about the structure of the kernel, for example, or the file system layout, or where things are stored. It's not something I need to know to use my system, so I don't really dig into it. The things I really learned were probably more about Flatpak, snaps, and app images and stuff like that, where they store files, how they work, how can you sync stuff between computers using that. But nothing really that powerfully technical.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I most of the times I get asked or like the main concerns from users that come from Windows or Mac OS is that, yeah, I would like to use Linux, but I don't have time to learn all those commands. I don't have time to learn or to increase my technical knowledge in order to fully understand and fully use Linux. And I think it's kind of a misconception that comes from 5 to 10 years ago, where in order to do anything on Linux, you actually needed to fiddle a lot with the command line. But as you said, now it's more user friendly. There are all these distributions that are targeted to, you just have a fully functional distribution. You install, you use it, that's it. You don't have to tinker around and change anything.
Yeah, the graphical tools have really matured, I think, and well, at least in elementary OS, you get pretty much whatever you need if you don't want to mess too much with the experience. And on most distros, you've got a graphical user interface to tweak almost anything. And basically, if you really have an issue and you find a solution online, sure, they'll give you a command line, but I mean, you don't really have to understand it if you don't want to. You can just copy paste it, and most of the time it will fix your problem.
Yeah.
I'm not saying just copy paste random stuff off the internet on your terminal, because that's obviously not a good idea.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to learn about it, and some users have reported that it works for them, that it's a good solution, you can just copy paste and do it, and it works basically.
Nice. We already touched upon a little bit your Linux origin story, like the way I like to call it. If you can recall, especially at the beginning, or maybe even like recently, what was during your experience of going Linux full time, what were the biggest struggles during your journey? What was something that you noticed, like, oh, I really don't like this, or this is terrible, and after a little bit of time you overcame? But even if you didn't and you're still struggling with that today?
I'd say the Wi-Fi drivers. These have been a pain in my butt for as long as I've been using Linux. And when I started using it, I had a laptop which didn't have Wi-Fi, because in 2006, it wasn't all laptops that did have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So mine didn't have one. And so I bought a USB key to have Wi-Fi, and it worked fine on Windows, but obviously on Linux, it wasn't recognized. And it probably took me about maybe 2 months to find a solution to reliably make that thing work. And using NDisWrapper, which grabs a .inf file from the Windows drivers and tries to make it talk to the Linux kernel or something. This was just some kind of voodoo black magic weird thing that ended up working in the end. But it took me ages, and at least, well, you can probably understand how frustrating it is to have to go back, plug your laptop onto your router, try to download the packages you need, and then go back to your room and try to install the drivers. It doesn't work. You need more dependencies. You go down back again, download the download the packages you need, and do that thing 20 times until it's fixed. It was just a pain, and this hasn't really improved, I think, because well, my new desktop doesn't have Wi-Fi built in either,
Hmm.
and there's no Ethernet port in my office where I'm at right now. And so I try to use a USB key, which is a pain again
Yeah.
because the driver's support is still not there for these things. And I know it's not specifically Linux's fault; it's probably more the manufacturer's fault that don't provide these drivers. But I bought 3 adapters on Amazon.
Hmm.
None of them work out of the box.
Oh God.
And they were listed as compatible with Linux, and they work on no distro I could try. So I had to fiddle and compile Wi-Fi drivers, and none of them worked either. I had to try maybe 20 or 24 of them, variants that you can find on GitHub. It's still a major pain. And in the end, I just gave up and I bought 50 meters of Ethernet cable and I just glued it all along my wall
God.
to plug an Ethernet plug into my office because it's just more convenient and easier. And that's something we shouldn't have to mess with today, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's still a big pain, and that has been a pain since I started using Linux. Apart from that, I don't think there's really any really big issues for what I do.
Well, I consider a Wi-Fi issue a very big issue. Yes, if that doesn't
It's a
work.
major pain.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the main things that I don't really like about the Dell XPS developer edition. That I love the fact that they released this laptop with Ubuntu pre-installed, but the fact that they still use the killer Wi-Fi adapter instead of the regular Intel. It's well known that the killer Wi-Fi adapter, the drivers are not fully compatible with Linux. So Ubuntu 16.04 had major problems with the Wi-Fi adapter. It works on 18.04, but it's spotty. Like it drops once every 5 minutes, it drops the connection, and it's very very stupid. It's something that it's hard to understand, like which, like why, like whose fault is it?
Yeah.
But probably the manufacturers, they don't want to release their drivers open source. They don't care about things. They don't want to invest money in fixing those things. So they work with Windows. It's fine. Like we don't care. But it's a major point for any regular user that they want to just buy a Linux laptop and they stumble upon all these weird problems. Do you think if you weren't so invested in Linux, would you have like completely give up and say, okay, fine, I'm going to install Windows and that's it?
Well, yeah, if I had bought a laptop and like I couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work reliably, yes, I would have gave up. Probably, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
would have given up if I wasn't really willing to use Linux and if I didn't have a YouTube channel based on Linux, I probably would have given up because it was just a pain. It drove me crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
I spent like maybe 5 or 6 evenings from 8 p.m. to maybe 3 or 4 a.m. trying to find drivers, compile them, make them work, reboot the computer, unplug, replug, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing worked. And even on my Huawei MateBook 13, which is the thing I'm using right now for this call,
Mm-hmm.
the Wi-Fi is based on Intel. It's an Intel Wi-Fi card, I
Yeah.
think, and it's still spotty. Even
Wow.
that thing has open source drivers, and it's still spotty. It still drops the connection every 20 or 25 minutes. I
What?
still have to reconnect to it, and that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, it's acceptable to me because I don't really mind all that much. I just have to shut down the Wi-Fi and reboot it, and it basically does not interrupt anything because the
Mm-hmm.
OS handles that pretty graciously. But it's still a pain. And I think, yeah, a newcomer, a new user faced with that will probably give up. He's gonna say Linux is crap. Linux doesn't work. Linux
Yeah.
has no internet support. You can go in on the internet with Linux. I give up.
Yeah.
I would understand that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely understandable. Nothing against that. Oh, wow, that's terrible. So throughout these 2.5 years, almost 2.5 years of all your videos, did you notice any trend in your videos? Like, did you notice any type of content that drive more attention, or some other type of content that they like like mostly ignored by users? What is the thing that users crave the most, if you have these sort of like metrics?
I think the videos that work the best are distro reviews and desktop environment comparisons. Like you do a GNOME versus KDE video, views are going to explode. And
Really?
if you do a Fedora versus Ubuntu or Zorin OS versus Elementary OS video, these things are going to fly off the shelves. They're going to be watched like hundreds and thousands of times. People are going to like and dislike and get angry in the comments. But I don't think these videos are really interesting to make, at least not to me. I don't find them really fun to make. And honestly, I don't want to compare those things. So
Yeah.
I stopped making them a while ago. And distro reviews, I mainly stick to Ubuntu right now, Ubuntu and Elementary OS, because Ubuntu is like the big one that, yeah, everything is based off of that. So Ubuntu is an important one, and Elementary OS is the one I use and the one I really like. So it's just a pleasure to make video reviews about these ones. But yeah, I don't do them anymore. No more reviews for maybe Manjaro, Fedora, etc. It's just not fun to make to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the desktop environment comparisons really do tend to work really well, but yeah, they're not my thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The things that really don't work that well, weirdly, are the videos that explain how to switch to Linux, because basically it seems like newcomers just want to install the thing and not look at how to do it. And well, yeah, I started a Switch to Linux video series, and they are not really working all that well, probably because the subscribers to the channel are already using Linux and they don't really need to learn how to use it. So basically, the views are not that high, but yeah, it doesn't seem to generate that much interest. And stuff about hardware that I didn't really work that well. I tried a few videos on the Jetson Nano, which is NVIDIA's equivalent to the Raspberry Pi, which is more geared towards AI and machine learning. And this didn't work all that well. And my PinePhone video, I think, did pretty well, but probably not as much as I thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more hype in the PinePhone video. In general, the reviews of the PinePhone. Instead, it seemed to like the excitement for that hardware seemed to have dropped rapidly after a week or two of the first release, which is kind of strange because it's a massive achievement in technology and progress in open source. So yeah, I guess we are in a world with informations. You get bombarded by news every single minute. So things it's hard
to forget about things.
Yeah, it's hard to keep things relevant for a long time. It's interesting that your most viewed videos are the comparison of different distros and desktop environments. Do you think, and maybe this can be tied to a follow-up question that I have, but do you think that we still, as a Linux community, we're curious, we're not sure which distro to pick, and we're always comparing all this plethora of availability that we have, all these different options, and we always constantly try to challenge each other and find the perfect one, the one distro to rule them all. Do you think it's that type of curiosity, like, oh, I really wish I want to know how they actually work differently, or users are looking at, oh, I want to know which one is better and which one is the best?
I think it's mainly which one is the best, because basically when someone, at least in my comment section, when people request something like maybe review this distro or make this comparison, they always accompany that with which one is the best. And well, you can give a straight answer to that, because what's best for you might not be best for me. What's best for somebody who works in IT might not be best for someone who works in video creation or music creation. And there is basically no best final answer for anyone, but I think it comes from that. People just want to fiddle. They want to try everything just to make sure that they picked the best thing that there is at the moment. And even when people give their experience in the comments, they never say like, yeah, I tried Manjaro and that's the one I liked better, so I stuck to it. They said, yeah, Manjaro is so much better than the thing I used before. And or Arch is so much better than what you use, or you should switch to Arch. And they never probably see the fact that what's best for them isn't necessarily best for someone else, and the experience they have with the thing they prefer is not the same experience that some other people can have with it. And yeah, I think it just comes from a place of I want to use the best thing right now, since distributions are mostly all free, free as in free beer. Well, you have no barrier to try and switch and use everything. And so I think those video comparisons are really popular because people just want somebody to tell them, yeah, use that thing. This thing is better.
Yeah, I love it. I love when you go in support forums and there's a user like, oh, my Intel Wi-Fi drivers don't work. And the first answer is like, switch to Arch.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
basically, yeah, you might solve the driver problem, but you'll never have a functional system, because if you don't really follow the wiki step by step and that you don't know what you're doing, you'll never get to a bootable system. So
Yeah, exactly. This topic really ties well with the follow-up question that I had. That your recent video probably is the last one that you published, if I'm not wrong. You kind of like questioned the usefulness of having multiple distribution, and if this type of separation still matters today. You went into the in-depth analysis of everyone uses the Linux kernel, the desktop environment changes, but most of desktop environments, they still use the same GTK toolkit. So there's no real separation. You can kind of achieve pretty much the same thing on multiple things. And this ties kind of similarly to a comment that Alan Pope from Canonical did on Linux from Everyone podcast a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not wrong. He basically said that in order for the Linux desktop to be successful, to a better market share compared to Windows and Mac OS, we should all use a single distribution and avoid forks. He, of course, proposed Ubuntu because it works for Ubuntu. But what do you think about that? Do you agree? And first question, do you agree with this statement, or you think it's a little bit too drastic?
Well, he probably made that statement as a bit of a joke, but not really. Sure, yes, I think he really believes that, yeah, we should have one distro as the face of Linux, but I don't think he believes that we should only have one distro. And if that's what he meant, I 100% agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be impossible to do, I think, basically. Trying to regroup every community to tell them to promote distro X and tell this is the Linux we want to push to everybody. And then once they have the foot in the door, we can offer them some choice. But for starters, let's just focus on one and promote one. I don't think we'll ever manage to get a whole complete community to do that, because nobody is willing to agree on which distro is the best for a beginner.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard. I do agree with that proposition, though, and I think it would be nice if we could just get behind something and say, yeah, this is the entry point. This is what you should use to start and try to learn about Linux, get used to free software, the replacement programs that you're going to use instead of what you're used to on Windows or Mac OS X. And once you've learned all that, there's a whole possibility of choice, and now you can choose however you want and easily and use anything you like because you're familiar with it. And you will have to relearn a few things, but basically you know all the basics that allow you to use anything you want. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea. And basically, I'm going to spoil my own video, but at the end of my Do Distros Still Matter video, I basically say yes, but probably only because of their vision and their values, their focus. Mm-hmm. Because all distributions don't have the same values. Like Arch wants you to learn how to use your own system and customize it bit by bit. Linux from scratch wants you to compile everything and do everything yourself. And Ubuntu is supposed to be really simple, have good graphical user interface elements to allow you to configure whatever you want. Everything has its own values and its own focus. And I think we should probably try and push something whose values are, I'm here for beginners. I'm here to be useful to beginners. Anybody can use me. Anybody can understand me. And the online help is sufficient. And that's why I mainly recommend Ubuntu to all beginners, because basically when you look up stuff online, you're going to find more answers with Ubuntu in the name than with Linux. So that's the one I push. And as such, I can see myself agreeing with Alan Pope on this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a very good analysis, and I totally agree with your answer. Probably like some users might see your last video as a little bit of a provocative, something like that you're trying to I don't know, initiate a conversation that most users don't like when you touch their Linux distribution. If they're really passionate, it's like, no, this is terrible. Can you recall, or if you have some example, what was the overall user response from that video, and if you had some very angry and upset users?
On this video specifically, I didn't have very angry people. Most people said, okay, I see where you're coming from, but you're wrong on this or that. Like, for example, I said that hardware support basically is exactly the same on most distros that released at the same date. And yeah, people don't seem to agree with that because, well, it seems that in their experience, when you install a more recent distro, you have better hardware support, which
Hmm.
is, yes, true. What I was comparing was distros released at the same moment in time. So basically, they all have the same stuff and the same hardware. But I never had really big angry comments. It's really rare, honestly, on my channel. Everybody talks about like the Linux community being super angry and super mean, and I don't get many people really angry. I don't really get many angry or mean comments on what
Hmm.
I do. Some people are disagreeing a lot with what I say, which is, well, the main staple of the Linux community, I think. But they are not really criticizing harshly. They're just
Hmm.
expressing their opinion, and they're expressing it in a pretty friendly way most of the time. So on that video specifically, I didn't get any specifically angry or mean comments. Uh, People seem to be basically in the camp of, yeah, distros don't really matter, maybe except for beginners.
Hmm. Interesting. Yes, I also noticed this sort of like recent shift in the feedback and in the overall um, emotional status, if we want to call it that way, of the Linux community. I would say like I've been using Linux for probably like 15 years. I started fiddling when I was like 18 with Ubuntu Janty Jackalope. It was like
Mm.
8.4 or 6.4, I don't remember.
I think that might
Version.
have been 7.04,
Yeah.
7.10, something like that. Yeah.
And at that time, looking for help online was just a manslaughter. Like you were, if you asked a stupid question or something, you say something slightly wrong, it was just like, you're an idiot, get out of here, you don't
Yeah.
deserve to use this. And instead, I think Linux is becoming more and more mainstream, and it's like the community started to accepting that. The fact that the people are curious and they question and they seek help is that it's beneficial to the community. So
Mm.
we can increase the amount of users in Linux, and being aggressive and being so close-minded is not helpful for anyone, and it's gonna damage your own distribution as well. So it's a very interesting
Yeah.
shift.
I think people switch from seeing Linux as a, if I'm the only one using Linux, then I'm better than people. They probably
Yes.
switch to, we should be more using this because we'll get more software, more support, more stuff. And in the end, the experience is going to be better for everyone. So we still have the diehards guys that have been using Linux for 30, 35 years and absolutely do not want Linux to go mainstream.
Yeah.
And most users are now starting to switch to the other mentality, which is, yeah, let's bring people over and show them how good it is. And to do that, we have to be gentle and nice to them and accept that they don't know everything. And
Mhm.
I think, yeah, many people are starting to see it that way.
Yeah, nice. So a couple of random, very quick questions. The first one is, if there's a piece of technology, it can be both hardware or software, that you were most excited for the past year and you are excited for the upcoming future.
I'd say the PinePhone.
Nice.
Yeah, because, well, I've been using Android for a long time now. I try to stay away as much as possible from the Google services, which is ironic, I know, because I own a YouTube channel. But I try to, yeah, this gets pointed out very frequently on my switch from Google videos, by the way.
Yeah.
People really seem to find that ironic, and I agree. But yeah, the PinePhone is something I feel is really important because, as always with Linux, we are catching on the bandwagon like 10 years too late. We're jumping on smartphones with a really hard push right now. Like, it's been 12 years since the release of the first iPhone, I think. So yeah, we're even later than Microsoft. So yeah, we're not in any hurry to do things rashly,
Mhm.
and I think that's really exciting because we can take our time to do stuff correctly. We have strong bases in terms of software to run on the PinePhone, and so as a piece of hardware, it's not that interesting by itself, but it's the possibilities it can offer in the future that are, I think, really exciting.
Mhm.
This is something that we haven't had really, a dedicated phone that can run any Linux OS you want. Basically, it's a computer. You can install a phone Linux distro
Mhm.
on it. And I think it's really nice to have that. And It ties in with the Pine Tab, the Pine Time as well. All that stuff that they're making. It's really nice to see, nice to watch. They are sure as hell not ready for general public, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But they are really interesting pieces of software, and the possibilities they open is amazing, I think, because taking a random Android smartphone and trying to install Linux on it is going to be a pain because the hardware does not have open source drivers. There's no documentation available on most of them. That's why you still can take my Galaxy S10e, which released like a year ago, and install anything on it apart from Android. It's
Yeah.
just too locked down, and even custom ROMs won't work because you don't have the drivers for the GSM technology for the Wi-Fi. So an open hardware phone is awesome for that. And that got me really excited when I got it. And I'm still very excited to see where developers are going to go with it.
Nice. A little follow up. What do you think about the Librem 5?
I'm going
I
to
knew
catch some
it.
flack for that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I threw
Well,
you a curveball.
yeah, I know. Okay, I'm going to try not to be too harsh, but I'm still going to say what I think.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great achievement as well. It's an important piece of software, and I really like the way they work with the GNOME developers to build the FOSS shell, which is the adapted GNOME shell for software.
Yeah.
I like what they're bringing with libhandy, which allows applications to be more responsive and work on a phone screen as well. But I do think they are scamming users out of their money.
Interesting.
Their phone is way pricier than it should be. It's basically the same hardware specs as the PinePhone, and it's 3 times the price. And I won't talk about the USA special edition that costs like $2,000 or something.
Yeah.
I think they are trying to finance some other projects with that money, and if people want to give them that money, it's really fine. If people want to do that, it's their money. They do what they want. But I will never buy that software. I will never buy that phone because, well, I don't think it's good value for the money. And I like the work they're doing. I like that they're trying to finance it. But the user should pay for the end product and not for the thing you are trying to finance with the end product. And I think that's what they are doing.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I was very impressed about their upstream contribution to the GTK toolkit with the libhandy. That's still amazing if they continue. I kind of like stopped following a little bit the updates recently, but the most disappointing thing was the overall marketing of this thing. It was completely off. I think they made some very big mistake in timing and communication and just how they presented the whole product and how they presented this whole thing. It's
I mean,
strange.
at some point, their communication was so bad that they got half the backers of the project to think that they were trying to not ship the phones, which they announced that wasn't true, like maybe 2 days afterwards, saying, no, don't worry, they'll ship. They're shipping in 2 weeks. And why didn't you say that immediately?
Yeah.
Why did you let people think that the phones were absolutely not shipping? Their communication has been terrible for the beginning. And every time they announce something, they just raise 20 other questions and they never answer them. They answer them 2 months later. And I think it gives an impression of shadiness, I think.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think it's intentional. I don't think that Purism is a shady company, not at all. But I think their communication needs work.
Yeah, a lot. Same original question: which piece of technology or hardware or software are you switching to instead of excited to disappointed? If there's something that happened last year, a couple of years ago, you were so hyped for it and then you received it, you use it, and it was a complete disappointment? Or also, is there something that it's coming out in the future and you already know that you're going to be extremely disappointed with that?
Well, there's 2 things. There's Assassin's Creed Vikings edition, which I'm probably going to be very pissed off about because it doesn't look like there are going to be Vikings at all. But that's not open source, so let's leave that away. No, I'd say the PinePhone as well. I was super excited to get it, and I was really excited to see where the software was. So not the PinePhone in itself, but the software that runs on it. And when I got the PinePhone, I thought, Ubuntu Touch has been around for maybe something like 10 years.
Yeah.
And I know Ubuntu has dropped it and Canonical has dropped it. It's maintained by a community and they never had really any flagship phones to try and work on. But the interface and the software is still really, really ways off. And I was expecting something a lot more polished by the time I ran it on the PinePhone. So the hardware support is spotty. That's normal. That's new hardware. It hasn't been tested yet. So the fact that the cameras didn't work at the time or the audio didn't work didn't bother me that much. But the interface, the fluidity, the open source applications available on it, I really thought there would be a lot more progress, because I already had used Ubuntu Touch on a Nexus 5 back when the Nexus 5 released.
Yeah.
And it's basically at the same stage, at least as far as I can remember. I don't want to throw any shade on the developers of the project, because I'm pretty sure they're working super hard on it, and it's on their free time. They're not getting probably any money off of it. So it's not to criticize their work. They're doing amazing stuff. But I really was expecting a lot more progress. And same with KDE Plasma Mobile. I felt it was really alpha version software. And I was expecting a little bit more than that. So I would say, yeah, that's my big disappointment. I was expecting some more advanced software, but maybe that's just me. It's my expectations were probably too high for something like that. And since I hadn't followed these projects for a long time, maybe I was just expecting much more progress. I was probably expecting these versions of Linux made for phones to have progressed as much as the Linux desktop has in 10 years, but they didn't follow suit, and probably because there is probably no interest in Linux phones. At least there wasn't before the PinePhone was released.
Do you think these interest into a completely open source and freedom-based phone will die in the future? Will right now, like we had, I feel like last year or 2 years ago, we had all these mega hype for the Librem 5 and the PinePhone. And now instead, this year, or most recently at the end of 2019, it seems that everything just stopped, like all the updates and news and all the upcoming features and all the future things that just, they completely stopped, and people kind of like stopped caring a little bit. Do you think we'll die out completely, or it will pick up again?
I think it will pick up again. I think it died out a little bit because people exactly like me did some reviews or previews or opinions on these hardware. And obviously all the opinions are, don't buy this if you're not a developer, because it's not ready, and you're going to have to wait for 3 or 4 years before you have something really usable on there. So I think people just got annoyed or maybe just lost interest, because they were like, yeah, finally Linux hardware with a Linux OS on a phone. I'm going to get rid of Android, get rid of Apple, use open source software on my phone. And then everybody comes out and say, hey, it's a great piece of software, a great piece of hardware, don't buy it yet. And I think people just lost interest at that point. But I think if communication is good on the updates to maybe Ubuntu Touch, KDE Plasma, or just the FOSS shell and what Purism is doing, I think interest might pick up again. And I'm pretty certain that the Pine 64 will release a final version of the PinePhone once the software is really completely usable on it, and that will spark up some interest as well. They seem to have really huge successes when they release their final products, like the Pinebook Pro, for example, or the original Pinebook. The excitement was huge, and the stocks just were completely empty after a few days. So I think it will pick back up again. I think there is a lot of people waiting for a specifically Linux-based phone with only open source hardware and software, and many of these people are willing to let go of the convenience of having like a banking application or your Spotify app or something like that. Especially if we can bring the Nbox project to these distros, which is something that allows you to run Android apps. I think now it's based in the cloud. So basically, there's a virtual machine that runs Android in the cloud and just sends you the app, basically like what Stadia is doing with games, but now you can do it with Android apps. And if that picks up and really works reliably, even on a 3 or 4G connection, this could solve all the problems, because you could use any Android app you like and be completely free of the services you don't want to use, and use a pure Linux base on your phone, which would be awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And also, I really hope if the PinePhone becomes a reality for regular consumers, is that they're going to focus a lot on the SDK, on the developer aspect of it, because the same thing that did Elementary OS, it's focusing a lot on their developers community, allowing pretty much everyone, even people with no experience, to build custom application for your desktop. So if something like that could happen for a phone, that would be amazing, because you can literally build anything. Like there's no limitation in, oh, I need a banking application, or I need something similar to WhatsApp, or I need something similar to, I don't know, more power to the camera app. There's no limitation for regular developers. Oh yeah, this uses Linux distributions or Linux packages and libraries. I can build that for the phone because it's completely open source. So that's
And I don't
exciting.
think we'll see limitations such as the ones that you get on Android, or well, not that much on Android, but mostly on iOS, where Apple says, no, you cannot use that API, or you cannot use that thing. It's not public. It's limited to our applications, and you don't have that level of access to the hardware. We manage that, so you cannot add more features, for example, to the camera app. There's stuff like that. I don't think we'll see that on Linux phones. I think everything will be completely open. If you want to make a fantastic camera applications which lets you tweak the aperture, the ISO, anything like that, record at higher frame rates than what the default application allows. I think this will work fine. And sure, I'm not expecting any third party to release like their Spotify applications immediately on it, or your bank accounts probably won't be on it either. Probably no native Facebook, no Twitter, stuff like that. Probably they won't come. But these are things that you don't need an official app for. And if you really want to use them, you can use the web app. And I think many people that will buy these things probably don't want to use these services anyways.
That's true. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I was actually trying to go through all the applications that I use day by day on my phone. And it's actually, if I remove the social media, then that's it. It's just a phone. I need to just send text messages and make calls, because I'm old, so I still make calls. That's the problem. But yeah, it's absolutely doable and replaceable. I'm not obsessed by Instagram. I don't need to tweet every single second, so I don't have the needs of using the phone in that way as a mini computer. I just like need a phone that works and doesn't track me everywhere every time and doesn't collect my private data.
That's my use case as well. And the only apps that I cannot find for now are Spotify, because I'm subscribed to there and all my playlists are in there, and I don't want to own my music. I don't care about owning my music. I just want to listen to new stuff whenever I want. So Spotify will be probably a problem. And I've got my workout app, which is Freeletics, which doesn't have a web version. And as such, I need to have something that allows me to install that application as well. But I could see myself using a specific second piece of hardware just for the workouts, and using a normal Linux-based phone for all the rest, honestly.
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing stopping people to grab the Spotify web app and make a flat pack and put it in on the phone.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's gonna happen. So if you could be, and this is like dreaming, if you could be in charge for one day of an entire Linux distribution, like if you could be Mark Shadowward, like replacing him from Canonical, be in charge of Elementary OS or any other distribution, what would be your top list of executive orders, something that you absolutely want to change and this has to be done immediately?
If I took control of Elementary OS, I would tell them that fractional scaling is important.
Yeah.
They seem to have mixed opinions on fractional scaling, thinking that if it's not 1x or 2x, it's not useful, it gets blurry and it's not beautiful. But the reality is people have 1440p displays, and on laptops, if you don't have fractional scaling, it's either too small or too big. That would probably be the first thing I would change, like put everything on fractional scaling right now. And apart from that, I don't really think I would change anything, because I think most distros are really well directed and covered. They focus on the right things, I think. I know some people would like Ubuntu to come back to Unity or make their own desktop environment, because having something different is always better. And sure, why not? But I think working with upstream and trying to help the GNOME developers as much as you can to work towards something that you want to have is a lot better than just saying, hey, you don't want to help us? Well, screw it. We're going to do whatever we want. I think most distros are well behaved and try to work well with upstream. I know Ubuntu doesn't have that reputation, but I also know it's not true.
Yeah, it's not
people
true,
seem to think that Ubuntu just grabs everything and never contributes back. That is absolutely false, from what I know anyways. They contribute just as much as to the Linux kernel and to GNOME as most other distributions. I don't think I would change much. No, honestly, no, not really. Maybe a little more focus on the desktop than on the server side. I understand why they focus on the server side. That's because that's the one that makes them money, obviously. But a little more focus on the desktop, trying to to bring back the 1000 paper cuts project, for example, fixing the little many annoyances that you can have every single day using some open source software, trying to make stuff look more native, look more integrated. Just a little bit more work on the desktop. If I were in charge of Ubuntu, that's probably what I would do.
That's a very interesting point. I was expecting some crazy idea or something like, no, let's kill this. Let's completely change everything.
Kill System D.
Stop X11. Stop. Okay, I think we are kind of at the end of this lovely interview. It's been almost an hour. First of all, tell us where people can find you, and of course I'm going to put all the links in the description, but where people can follow you, see your videos, and follow you on social media.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at the Linux Experiment or the Linux Gaming Experiment if you want to see someone really scared and bad at video games playing games on Linux. That's also something you can do. You can follow me on Twitter at the Linux EXP, and you can also find me on Librem or Mastodon. On Librem, I've got the exact same channel name, so both my channels are synced there. And on Mastodon, I think it's the exact same handle at the Linux EXP as well.
Nice. Is there anything else you want to tell us before concluding this lovely conversation? Something we missed, or something that you want to tell the world?
Stay home.
Home.
That's gonna piss people off. Yeah, sure. Let's try to not get too crazy. I know at least in France we're gonna be de-quarantined like on Monday, so we don't have to fill in some paperwork to be able to go outside. And I think people are gonna take advantage of that to behave like complete idiots. So if you are getting de-quarantined, please try and not be too silly. That's all I have to say.
That's never gonna happen. Humanity is silly. We are a silly bunch.
Yeah, probably even I will not follow my own advice because I'm missing the sea and I live 30 minutes away from a beautiful beach, so I'm probably just gonna go there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, me too. I'm very looking forward to go hiking on the mountains. I missed nature. I missed outside.
I want to see people again.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
And for me to wish to see people again, it's really, really a big thing.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Nick. That was very, very insightful, and I had so much fun. I hope it was a good experience for you. And
absolutely.
Happy Linux. I'm very looking forward to your next videos. I will keep following you, and thank you again. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.